Ladies and gentlemen, I call this meeting to order of the Vallecitos Water District. Pledge of Allegiance will be done today by Craig Dubon. Craig, where are you?
There you go.
Could you come right up here to the microphone for us? Come to the meeting, you good stuff.
Please face the flag, place your right hand over your heart. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mike. Roll call, please.
Here.
Here. Here. Here.
Here. Okay. We have to adopt the agenda for the regular meeting, today's meeting.
Move to approve.
Motion
Second.
and a second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
That's 100%. Presentation by Debbie Biggs. Debbie was unavoidably detained in court or somewhere else today, so she'll be giving that to us in 2 weeks. Now, what we've all been looking for and longing for is a presentation by the Collections Department.
So we'll actually have Braden McCrory do that. He's a supervisor of the collection department. The guy who was going to do it is, I think, stuck out in the field.
He just came in, but he's a little out of breath from running all the way from the lake. So,
As long as you want to swim it.
afternoon, board members, how's everybody doing today?
Wonderful.
Good.
So, who all of you guys had the PowerPoint slide? What are some of the departments?
Some,
I think you're-
finance.
Exactly. So now when you get asked, you're gonna say the collections department, right?
There you go,
Nice.
exactly.
I do have to throw a little disclaimer out. After watching this, listening, feeling, and possibly smelling the presentation, maybe, you might feel the sudden need or urge to change occupations. Weigh in carefully. Potential change not filled with the stomach. Pain of nose, wear of open-toed shoes, bare handling, nail biting, nose picking, or afraid of getting dirty kind of person. If you feel that could possibly fall into, if you feel you could fall into one of those categories, might not be the job for you. So with that, everybody understand the rules and the warnings and all that?
Gotcha.
I'm not gonna be held responsible.
And keep in mind, Braden teaches all these classes at Palomar.
Yeah.
And people come?
There's a line of them.
Betty, that's cold. I'll let a
The
meeting
answer
adjourn.
is of course.
Absolutely, absolutely. We've actually had very good turnout. Last about four or five semesters, so right around 40 to 35 students per semester, so.
Oh,
Wow.
terrific.
Yeah,
That's good.
I haven't seen you into them.
No, I'm thinking I'm a little bit worried about my open-toed shoes.
You'll be all right, just walk
The
on
rest
in.
is okay.
All right, here we go. So the systems collection department is comprised of these handsome gentlemen, some of which you can see out there in the audience. The other portion of it, we're actually hung up on a couple projects. So we're working on a pretty heavy-duty line cleaning in Lake San Marcos area. They got hung up, actually got the truck, the jetter hose, which we're gonna talk about. They got that stuck, so they're out there trying to get that unstuck. The other ones, we're working on a construction project on Mission Road. We're replacing a 20-foot stick of ductile iron pipe. Ready for, in the process of that, as usual. Construction jobs went a little bit longer, so we're out there hung up on that. So the employees currently in the department, one supervisor, we got 2 leads, and there's 10 worker 1, worker 2, system workers. We are ensuring that the goods stay in pipe and off the treatment plant for proper care by using a wide variety of equipment, tools, and chemical management. We have one, hold count. Help me out, Dennis, that's a big one.
1.2 million.
Yeah, a lot.
1.2 million linear feet from 4-inch to 12-inch pipe. About 83 and change of 15 to 24-inch. About 27 to 42-inch pipe. Roughly about 6,400 and change manholes and about 571 cleanouts. So the difference between a manhole is or access point. Access point, you'll be able to fit a body down there. Clean out, it's about the size of a Costco coffee can. So that's kind of how you can tell the difference between a manhole and a clean out. Department facts. 16 real-time flow monitoring stations used for dry and wet weather trending capabilities of high and low flow alarming, hopefully lowering the SSO occurrences, which we'll get to that here in a little bit. There's
Quick
39
question, SSO?
sanitary sewer overflow.
Thank you.
That's one question per, you gotta wait till after. I just kidding. You'll notice some acronyms, if I buzz past them and they're unclear, stop me and let me know and I'll do my best or I'll refer it to Nancy. 39 facts, oils and grease application manholes, which now that's actually been changed to fogger, so fats, oils, grease, and roots. We draw traffic control plans, submit plans to the city for approval, and we set up traffic control plans. One of our really favorite ones is setting up traffic going up San Alejo Road and the backside in San Alejo. Traffic control starts more or less at Craven Road, all the way up the hill. We close the 3 lanes down into one. So we meet a lot of new and exciting people, make a lot of new friends when we do that. And the entire committee, we perform manhole grouting activities. The grouting more or less just helps seal off all the I&I or infiltration coming into the manhole, any excess groundwater, surface water, stuff like that. Some more facts. We have 12 odor controlling monitoring manholes. So from this, either due to change in direction, velocity of the flow, we have these odor monitoring or odor scrubbing manholes where it runs through some, for lack of a better term, it's carbon, takes out kind of the smelly stuff and kind of filters it so that they don't smell it. We also inject on average about 15,000 gallons of trioxin at 4 locations. The trioxin is used in an effort to control or suspend the sulfide odors in the liquid. Take samples daily for 5 locations throughout the district. And we've got some pictures actually coming up here that kind of show what a sample would look like. Sulfide sampling. Here, this is Mike. He's collected a sample of sewer water and he's testing for sulfide, water temperature, and nitrates. If we have a high nitrate level, that indicates that the odor stuff that we're putting in there, the trioxin, if there's excessive nitrate levels, that means that we're overdosing. We need to drop it down a little bit. So we're trying to get not a whole lot of nitrates left over. As you can see, Mike's holding his left hand, the blue one. The control is on his right hand. We're aiming more towards so we have closer to the clear instead of the blue. Mike's just double checking dosage rates. The results from lack of proper treatment can be costly, demonstrated by that. So reason for odor control and sulfide sampling. This is a lined concrete manhole. The sulfide gas interacts with the concrete. I'm sure everybody's used toothpaste at least once or twice in their life. You put it out, put it on your toothbrush, that's what the sulfide will do to the concrete. It turns it into almost like a toothpaste type consistency. So you can imagine that on a street, real busy street, Palmerport Road, something like that. You lose structural integrity of the manhole. We mentioned about the odor scrubbing locations. This is just an example. This is actually up at Discovery Lake, lower level. The carbon is inside there. We have a hole cored into the manhole, vents out through the carbon, scrubs all the nasty stuff out, smells like roses. We have 3 combination cleaning trucks, which is the big trucks that you see with the big debris tanks and the orange hose on the front. Well, that's a combination meaning that there's high pressure water, there's also vacuum. So it's a big, huge shop vac with garden hose on it, industrial size. A closed circuit television inspection van. We got pictures of these coming up too. A jetter trailer, we use that for easements or where we kind of have limited access and to clean the sewer lines. We also have a smaller sewer line, smaller diameter sewer lines and in front of the camera van. We have a confined space truck and we have a storage box trailer. All of which we got pictures coming up, kind of demonstrate and kind of see it And if you took the class, you'd be able to come out and get a little firsthand, see? Not that I threw a pitch on. So here's your combination truck. You can see the big steel 8-inch aluminum tube down inside the access point or manhole. That's the vacuum that goes into the back in the debris tank where the debris is collected and then we dispose of it properly. Orange sewer hose, you can see going down the line. Trucks carry about 600 feet of sewer line on there. It's 1 inch. Orange sewer hose capable of, that truck's capable of about 2,500 PSI. So it's great for shooting your brother or your sister or whatever. Collection department line cleaning schedule. So here's we get into the real exciting stuff, the regulations. Per the general waste discharge requirements or the GWDR of the state, we've implemented a line cleaning schedule. So the sewer lines from 4-inch to 12-inch, they're cleaned in a 15th-month recycle, or 15th-month cycle. The bigger lines, the 15 to 18, they're cleaned on a 3-year rotation. Actually, we're coming up due, we got a couple of 18-inch and 21-inch. We kind of sneaked the 21 in there too, but they're actually coming up due to be cleaned. And then it gets bigger, then it's gonna be on to 18 up. That's done as needed. We also do a intercept outfall, so our big main trunk lines. We inspect those manholes, access points quarterly, so every 3 months. If we see something start to look a little funky, then we'll come in, clean it up, and do whatever. So the bigger line is kind of a capital improvement project, or as
I have a question.
yes, sir.
You go back to that truck that you were just showing there. So that's, so that 1-inch line is like your jetter,
Correct.
so that's going upstream?
Correct.
And so the larger line just sits in all the extra water that's coming down from the jetter is picked up by that?
They have, on the end of those jetter hoses, they have different style of nozzles. And you can get them where the big nozzles, where they have like a cavity in the middle. With the water coming from the jetter or from the truck, as it pushes by, it also pulls the water through the center of that. It increases the scouring velocity, increases your gallons per minute going through there. And then on the bigger stuff, we normally come in at low flow, so if we need to capture it with the vacuum.
Okay.
Did that answer your question?
Yep.
Let me dumb it down one more step. The jetter is the red pipe that I see going down to the red cable,
Yeah, jetter
and
hose.
that's 1 inch,
Yes.
and that's where the pressure's going down to blow out whatever's in the way out of there.
Yep.
And then you just let it continue its normal flow unless you need to vacuum it out because it's something you don't want in the system.
Correct. We're real fortunate where we have the appropriate equipment, appropriate personnel, where we can actually get through the system quicker than that 15th-month cycle. So we stay on top of it. Most of the time when we'll have to use either change nozzles is either with enhanced maintenance area, which we're gonna get to, there's a little teaser. And then we'll catch it with the vacuum. But we stay on it, and most of the time you can clean it, you can tell by your flow. So as you're using the high pressure water, as you run up, if there's a sag in the pipe, the sag in the pipe is gonna slow the velocity of the water down. That's gonna let solids settle out. And as you go through there with the hose, it'll go from clear to kind of dirty, mucky, chocolate milk type like stuff, and then it'll clear back up. And then as you're coming back, if it stays clear, then you're good.
And is that a typical manhole cover that we're looking at in that picture?
I would like to say yes. Most of the time, you can see that's a 24-inch manhole that's sitting off to the side. That right there is actually a combination manhole where it's a 36 outer, the 24-inch inner.
So that means someone can climb down that, it's just not a.
That means like if I gotta go down there, we gotta pull the 24 and the 36 and get the butter out and somebody's gotta step on the head.
If you'd imagine, Director Mark, you remember the water wiggle toy that kids used to
Yeah.
get? You turn the garden hose and the
Yeah.
thing floats up in the air? Well, that's what it is, except at 2,500 PSI going through the pipe.
You can put your thumb on the end of a hose and you're squirting your Ballin' Brothers, whatever.
Right.
That's 60 maybe PSI roughly. Coming out into the hose with the nozzle on there, it can get up to 2,500. So,
Now, is that enough to disrupt roots that may be in the system as well?
yes, they do make special nozzles or attachments that you can put on the end of that hose that have like a cutting or scraping or deburring, I guess, for lack of a better term.
Great, thank you.
Yep. You're ready to come over, aren't you?
Yeah,
See,
I'm
I
ready
did.
for the class. Sign me up.
Oh, there it is. So the 18-inch larger, as needed, scheduled capital improvement. I mentioned enhanced maintenance, and then you kind of asked about with the nozzles and stuff like that. This kind of ties into it. So every agency that owns sewer lines has areas that need a little extra attention. Besides the normal cleaning cycle. So I mentioned our 15th month cycle. There's manholes, there's line segments that need a little bit more attention, whether it be from, we mentioned the sags, how those affect the flow. You also mentioned roots. Those areas, we refer those as our enhanced maintenance areas. Those are on a quarterly cleaning cycle also, so every 3 months we go through and just make sure, hit them up, make sure that everything's flowing like it should be, we don't have any issues. The reason they're on the list ranges from sags that we talked about, our bellies, heavy grit deposit. Some areas, roots will slow down the flow, taken away from the required scouring velocity. So you can get the tree roots running in there, and just like a plate of spaghetti, as those kind of get in there, go into the pipe, you can imagine putting paper towels, stuff, how it can get wadded up and backed up. So that's what we go through our enhanced maintenance areas, make sure everything's flowing and moving like it's supposed to.
Yes, Paul?
Braden, how many of those EMA areas do we have?
Nice, you're ready.
I'm ready. I'm gonna take over the class.
Normally my hair is better for the class.
That's okay. I'll check it out with you. You be careful.
Yes, ma'am, go ahead.
How many of those areas do we have? And do they ever get fixed that they don't have to be on it again?
We are in the process, you hit me up and I knew I was gonna set it up, and I knew I was gonna get asked it, and I'm drawing a blank. We're in the process of evaluating that. We used our closed circuit television. We went through and see what the problem is. Is it an engineering problem, meaning has the ground settled? Is it slowing things up that way? Is it roots coming in? Do we need to clean it and then blow like a spot repair through there to keep it out? So we're evaluating those as we go through, budgeting money so we can get a couple of sites and just keep chipping away, so hopefully we won't have any.
Okay.
Okay, guys, let's talk we got.
In part of what,
About 20, and we fixed 4 so far in the last 5
Yeah.
years.
we budget a couple $100,000 per year for those random things when they find it. If they find a belly, we'll come in after there's 2 or 3 of them. We'll bid out the contract and then fix those bellies.
What is the difference between a sag and a belly?
Same thing.
Oh, okay. So we have 20 in our miles of pipes. Okay. Thank
So
you.
which isn't that?
No, I think it's great.
And that includes all those miles of pipe, that includes the sags or the bellies, roots, and those kind of issues. So with all of that many miles of pipe, we only have a couple handful of issues like that.
Thank you.
Yep.
Braden mentioned, and this is for you, Dennis, Braden mentioned that fog has gone to fogger. We just talked about fog last month.
Yeah, the fog program will go through, and that's where we cut down on all the grease that builds up in these areas, plus
Right.
everything else. He added R to it because that's roots.
But are we adding that to our fog?
No, it has
program?
nothing to do with the fog program.
Okay, it's just his term.
That's just his term, yeah.
Most of the causes of the overflows, and correct me if I'm wrong, is due to grease. We've also had a real significant increase in cost for roots. So in an effort to address those, they've thrown the roots on with the adsorption and pieces. So.
Okay, thank you.
So here's the back of the camera van, but as you can see, we'll start at the left. That's our crawler. That is a non-steerable camera that we use, so you can see the camera's kind of looking at us. Well, it's not looking at us, but it sits right in the middle between the 2 tracks. As you go up towards the center, up just a little bit, that's our pipe ranger. That's capable of going up to 54-inch pipe. Those are bigger wheelbarrow style of tires. That one is steerable. It also comes with, or has the ability to, when we take the camera off the track system, put it onto that lift, we can pick it up, and that's how we get up a little bit taller in the bigger pipe. Bigger pipe, higher flow, you need to get up a little. Excuse me. We also have, as you can see on the right, that is our lateral camera. For smaller diameter pipe, we're not responsible for laterals. We're responsible for the main. We do have some small sections of 4-inch sewer line that we have used this on, and it just kind of comes in handy if we We've gotten the Vector stuck before, the combination truck stuck. With the hose inside the pipe, it's too small, we can't get our camera in there, so we've had to use the push camera to look and see what we're hung up on, joint, up into a clean out. There's Ian, he's operating and putting all the information into the survey, manhole number, pipeline segment, footage, weather, map page, that kind of stuff. So the cameraman's responsible for performing year-end finals, routine inspection, the cleaning areas, and other miscellaneous inspections that will need to be completed. The camera can be used in sewer lines ranging from 6-inch up to 54-inch. There's two styles that we have. One is a track system, and the other uses 6 steerable wheels. The bigger wheels on that picture that we just saw were kind of, the smaller 6-inch were right behind there. The smaller 6 wheels were behind there. Our confined space truck, that is the equipment, the piece of equipment, the truck that is set up for, oh man, making confined space entries. You gotta take the class.
I just want to drive the truck.
If I can drive it, you can drive it, we're good. On this truck, you can see the little orange tube there, that is a ventilation tube. So when we go into a reference confined space, pretty much like it says, it's not meant for permanent occupancy. Whether it be the shape of it, whether it be the size of it getting in, it's smaller size to get in, harder to get out, the air could be bad. This truck comes with, we have 2 big 8-hour bottles, big bottles of air that we need to if we need to get the masks on. It has our harnesses that we use, that kind of helps us when we get lowered down into this confined space. We have the winches, monitoring devices, those are kept in the office, but we have the monitoring devices. So all that stuff, ropes, like I said, air, ventilation equipment. So that's a confined space truck. Any questions?
One question, did you just have some type of a mock-up with the San Marcos Fire Department?
We did, actually. We are in the process of getting a little bit more training with actually San Marcos and Escondido. We have some facilities or some infrastructure that are in the neighboring cities, and just get some communication and how they work, how we work, what equipment they have, what equipment we have. So, yeah.
That's fantastic. I think
We-
that's-
We actually do rescue training with them every year. They'll go to our reservoir sites and everything from, there'll just be one of our employees laying out there. We've had them pretend there's somebody on the top of a tank that's incapacitated, so they'll go through taking the rescue equipment up there, how they lower them down, everything else. And the sewer crews actually help the fire department go into confined spaces because we have the training of a lot of the equipment the fire department doesn't have. So we've actually gone in and done inspections on their behalf into some of their facilities. We do that on an annual basis with them.
So the confined space truck is equipped and supplied with air balls, as we talked about, harnesses, masks, the davit arm assemblies, that's what we use, for lack of a better term, the crane that we use to get us over the space. Hardline communications, so if you're down there when you have a mask on, it's hard to pull like that. So we have a piece that goes around the neck, goes up top to the attendant who's watching the entrant. Make entries into wet wells, or when the entrant disappears from sight and is unable to keep in contact with the attendant at the top of the hole. There's a set procedure, set positions. There's the entrant, that's the person that drops down into the hole. There's the attendant that stays up top of the hole, maintains constant communication with the attendant. There's 2 people. And then we have a rescue. That's just in case something unfortunately goes bad. We go to great lengths, great training, preparation to make sure that the space is ventilated, that we have all of our bases covered. So if something goes haywire, it's the rarity. And then supervisor, that position's more or less just kind of site safety, make sure everything's checked out, eyes are crossed, T's are dotted, that the I's are dotted and T's are crossed, and just everything's up to snuff and ready to go. That make sense? Couple slides back, I mentioned the storage response trailer. This is it. So on that one, on this truck, or excuse me, trailer, we have 2 4-inch pumps. So if you're looking to the left of the screen, that's the 2 4-inch pumps. We have 1 2-inch pump on there with roughly about 1,300 linear feet of discharge. So with this last go around, we got 1 more 4-inch and 1 more 2. So we have a total of 3 4s and 2 2s. That make sense? So those have come in really handy. That trailer's come in really handy when we've been able to respond to overflows. We had some issues down there in the plant. We spilled into a storm drain. We were able to back it up, pump it out of the storm drain, and then go nearby man really quick, lessening the impact to the state. But it's come in very handy once or twice. And actually, it's been borrowed by the city of Vista. Borrowed it one time. They had an overflow down off Sycamore, and they all of a sudden, hey, can we use your trailer?
Quick question, when you loan out a piece of equipment like that, do you also loan out one of our personnel that stays with the equipment, or?
It kind of depends on the situation. Most of the time, the people that are in it, in the industry, they know how to run equipment. They know they just need some help. And so we're a piece of equipment, and we can get it to them a little bit quicker. At times, yes. And it's a close-knit family organization. We know everybody. You borrow a spill trailer, it's broken, you know, so.
It's not like borrowing a lawnmower from your neighbor.
Kind of, but we get it back. So. Or give it
Mr.
back.
President,
Yeah.
are these more formal mutual aid agreements that are set up in place ahead of time, or are they just casual?
Informal.
We have both. We have, it's called WARN. It's an area response agreement that we have between all the water and wastewater agencies, Southern California wide. And it dictates that in a certain emergency, you have the right to call, and we have preset items we agree to and how we pay it. We have one with Encina amongst all the 6 partners, and it's very simple. It just says you will if you can help them. You will pay reasonable costs for the equipment. Normally, if we have to send a Vector, to your question, we wouldn't send them a $300,000 Vector and say, please be nice. We'd send a crew with it. Unless it's something that goes into overtime or costs us money or equipment, it's you help me, we'll help you on an informal. But there are formal agreements as well that go into like the fires, to where people borrow equipment, they borrow staff. We didn't have a whole lot of trouble in the fires last time except for Coronado Hills. So we actually, the fire department, we provided the water trucks and everything else. We were working for the fire department. So we'll actually give staff to another agency. When that happens, that staff takes control of them, send them as a fire department, and they're not released until that person says they're done with it. But then they pay the full cost associated with it.
Thank you.
And you mentioned the formal and informal. We have, I know, we have 3 combination trucks. Luck of the Irish, 2 of them will go down, so we'll just have 1. We can call up City of Vista, City of Carlsbad, City of Escondido. Hey, I got 2 out of 3 trucks down. If I run into a bind, can I give you guys a call? You come bail us out or give us a hand? Absolutely. And they do the same.
Okay, thank you.
Like we kind of went over already, the spill response trailer is used for temporary high lines or pump arounds. When a sewer line becomes blocked and cannot be cleared quickly with all the pumps and hoses in one readily accessible place, when an SSO occurs, sanitary sewer overflow. The trailer can be mobilized in efforts to decrease the sewer overflow amount, minimizing the impact to the environment. So it's in one place, hook up to it, and we can wait. Smoke testing. So white traps need water. You can see on the left, that's where the drain, and that's actually in our mechanics bathroom. We kind of guinea pig with ourselves here in the system, correct? We put the mechanics bay to see how it was going to react, and we're going to be getting into. And we found that the floor drain in the bathroom in the mechanics bay didn't have any water in the trap. That's what it does. So the water in the trap helps keep the odors and the sewer gases from coming up through it, going out through the roof vent like they're supposed to. So when we're smoke testing, if everything's working like it's supposed to, the little roof vents should be having the smoke come out. And just here we're just applying the smoke, you can kind of see.
Excuse me.
I was like, man, I didn't remember doing that. Is that mine? Smoke testing activities are scheduled 3 times annually. Will be performed in areas from high to low infiltration that we use from our flow meters. Customers receive 3 notifications that we're gonna be smoke testing in their area. We send them out a mail letter, then we do two sets of door hangers, or 2 door hangers, so they have plenty of
And I'm
notifications.
sorry, but maybe I missed this, but the smoke testing is done because of what you're looking for? What,
Yes.
and give us some examples of things you found with smoke testing.
The reason, well, let's answer your first question. The reason why we do it is we're making sure that the system's tight and working like it's supposed to. So if you have some bad sections of pipe or something that might need spot repair, groundwater's high, you have additional water coming into the system. That costs money to treat it. So if we can tighten up the system and keep it as, sewer in sewer, then that's what we'll do. Some of the things that we found when we started, one of the ladies, we were smoke testing the suction line, and almost a year to the date before, she'd had a fire in the bathroom side of the house. One of the benefits of the smoke testing actually is we found that when they did the remodel, they didn't do the trap underneath the shower correctly, and she had smoke coming into her house. The bad part was, is it was a year to the date, and she thought that she was having a bad nightmare, and she comes out of the house and she's visibly upset. Come to find it was from us, so, but we helped her identify that they did the construction, that they didn't quite put the trap in correctly. And to be honest with you, that's been kind of the biggest issues that we've had, this dry traps. We kind of get into a routine of just using one bathroom maybe or something, or multiple bathrooms, and one bathroom won't get used. So the trap under the sink will dry out, shower, if we have one, whatever, will dry out. So we've had some clean out caps for private property access points. Get hit with a lawnmower, so you have a little 4-inch opening, and smoke can come out of there. When it rains, additional point for water to come in. Rare occasion, we've had a couple of roof vents, roof drains. So the water, as it rains, all the surface area of the roof runs into one drain. I don't want the water in my backyard. Hey, look at this 4-inch pipe that's here. Tie into it. So one person does it, 5 people do it, and you can just see how it increases our flow. We don't have capacity for it, so now we're backing up our system. So that's what the smoke testing is.
Thank you.
Did that answer your question?
Yes, sir.
So here's Mike, he's doing the daily rounds. Station the flow meter check using the SCADA computer and utilizing the iPad. I'm sure everybody's seen the iPad demo on the website and everything. This is how we're using it. The SCADA system monitors we're able to pull pump hours, flow reads, flow time or real-time flows, what's coming in from the different flow meter locations. In one location, we can go through, check it, make sure that we don't have any high spikes or whatever. That make sense? We respond to customer concerns, system checks at designated locations, sulfide carbon samples. We do data organization and entry from the day's fund. Time permitting, we do the fog application. We assist other crews. We're out there right now helping construction. They're helping us work on that line repair. The number one goal is to meet or exceed the guidelines that have been set with the implementation of the WDR, so the waste discharge requirements or the general waste discharge requirements. The ultimate goal, besides keeping everything in its pipe like it's supposed to, is to be recognized as a collection system of the year. Hey, where's that check off done list? Hopefully limit the number of spills to 0 or less. Budget permitting, repair, correct, enhance maintenance areas, and then continue the growth and knowledge of the department. I think that's it. I gotta give a shout out.
Followers and sleepers. Very good. Any questions from the board?
Oh, I did have a question.
Yes.
At some point along the way, I had heard that we were having manholes stolen and sold for scrap or something. Is that a myth, or is that reality, or is that come and gone?
I know that I've heard of horror stories at other locations. We haven't. I know sometimes, from time to time, on the water side, the construction side, when they're having to do gate valves and the little GV8 lids. Those will get stolen, popped off, cars will hit them, there's 3 little feet on the bottom that keep it down inside the can. They'll break, but we've been real fortunate, knock on wood, that we haven't had that kind of issue.
Good. Any other questions? Yes. Director Porter.
Just like to say that I see your trucks all over town, so you guys do a really good job of keeping your trucks clean, and so that's represents the district well, as well as your traffic control when your trucks are in the streets. You guys do a real good job with that. You've always been very well-mannered and courteous, so I appreciate it.
Can I add to that?
Yes, go ahead.
You know, to add to that, Jim, also, the staff that are doing the work in the trucks are always looking tidy and.
I'm gonna get out of the way,
Yeah.
'cause that's those.
The great representation of your department and our district, I've never seen anybody that looks like they just fell into the sewer hole. So.
You don't want to.
You probably bag those guys
Yeah.
and put them in the back of the truck.
It won't hurt you though. It'll make you go out and get rid of side. So don't worry about it.
So keep up the good
Actually,
work.
if you could stay there, Braden, for the next thing that is coming, and like I did warn the board, that's a different group, so you saw Braden's, we did turn off the sounds and the smells, they copied it.
I would like to say thank you, because I did not realize that this department did that thing. And I have great respect for what you do, and especially if you have to go into confined spaces, I think that would be very frightening. And what you deal with isn't the most popular subject in the world, so great appreciation. Excellent presentation too, I learned a lot. Thank you.
Thank you. We're very fortunate we can get the training and we get a good bunch of guys that are making the department, so.
And in line with that, I would also like to say thank you very much. Everything I have seen, I've only been in the district a year, but when I'm out there, I see your trucks, I see your workers, and they always look good. And I have to pass on the story that Jim and I saw at the last conference we were at, was the DC Water? DC Water. And this gentleman who was the general manager of DC Water walked up to the podium, and he looked just like one of you guys with the same shirt, the name, the whole thing. And this is $1 billion a year enterprise. So it's really nice to see the uniforms on you guys, and you keep them clean, you look good, and it says a lot about the quality of work you do. Thank you very much. And along with that, it's always nice for us to recognize our own employees, but when other people recognize you, your peer group, that's even better. And this is a plaque from the California Water Environment Association, San Diego section, presented to Vallecitos Water District, Collection System of the Year Award. So you guys did a great job. Thank you very much. Big round of applause.
So the Collection System Year Award is due to these guys. So they're the ones that are out there making my hair-burning ideas, by a better term. They're the ones that make the stuff hit the road, make it happen. So it's these guys, not me. So that's.
Congratulations.
Thank you, Braden. Now the mass exodus.
Yeah, right. Go back to work, will you?
Always great, and I want to thank you. I think having the department chair every meeting is very good and very educational
good.
for all of us,
Yeah.
especially when the majority of us are relative newbies.
Yeah, we're gonna be
Except
starting.
one old-timer.
I think we'll probably have to start going through it again with
Yeah.
Director Snell and now the board.
But I think that's great.
Yeah, so but that's part of the annual, bringing them through.
Good job. Okay. Next thing will be oral communications. Persons wishing to address a matter not on the agenda may be heard at this time. However, no action will be taken until the matter is placed on a future agenda, or if the matter is placed on a future agenda, in accordance with board policy. And the only speaker slip I have so far is Mr. Hunsaker.
It's no news that we're in a drought situation, and there are also large development plans underway. There is also recent reports that, and not so recent reports, that the Colorado River which we are dependent upon, is oversubscribed. Matter of fact, last year, I think I heard there was the 50, 60 miles of the headwaters were dry. And even though we're getting much more rain, all we're doing is partially recharging the losses. There's also reports that because of the solar cycles, we can expect possibly 20 to 40 more years of drought. Under these conditions, it would be appropriate probably to just put a moratorium on new large developments until such time as we start seeing some rains recharging our California situation. I'm also sure you've seen the very dramatic pictures from NASA satellite of the pre-drought and the present drought condition of our state. I believe it is prudent and wise that we, if we're going to ask people to start conserving, that we don't add to the burden that our city and district must bear by putting in large developments with their corresponding high water usages. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hunsaker, for your comments and opinions, and we welcome all those people during oral communication that wish to come and speak and give us their opinions and comments. We appreciate it. Thank you. Moving right along. Notice to the public, all matters listed under the consent calendar will be voted upon by one motion. There will be no separate discussion on these items unless a board member or member of the public requests that a particular item be removed from the consent calendar, in which case it will be considered separately under action items. And we have the approval of minutes and the warrant list. Looking for a motion?
Move to approve.
Motion and a second?
I'll second.
And a second, discussion. Anyone have any questions regarding those? If not,
Call for the question.
the question is the motion approved, yes or no? Call for the question.
All in favor, say aye.
Thank you. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thought I was missing
I'm
something.
here for you.
It's a team.
I just noticed that Jim Paul has blue eyes. You don't notice those things. I'm there going, oh, he's got blue eyes. I'm a photographer, I'm sorry. I didn't
Get
notice
sidetracked.
Focus.
We've never sat together. We've never sat together.
Mr. President,
Yes.
I just have one question. I didn't think I'd pull up the consent calendar, but just out of curiosity, it seemed like in the warrants, we had something to do with, we hired the Department of Forestry to clean for safety. I just wondered where that area had been occurred.
The Department of Forestry, we have an annual contract that the Department of Corrections, we hire them and they bring in, it's actually, in our case, it's a group of female prisoners. They work through the Department of Forestry, and we use them to clean easements, anywhere that we have heavy brush. They clean like the Twin Oaks, they'll keep Twin Oaks clean, all the slopes. South Lake, they clean that, the Grove that we own on Wolf Mountain. They'll come in, do the roots, and they'll do all the cleanup. And part of, part of the annual contract is that we buy the equipment, which could be chainsaws, the real long cutting equipment. We provide all that to them as the cost of it, plus it's a minimal cost per day on labor. You can imagine that. So we use them throughout the agency. They do it through the Department of Forestry because they're trained by the Department of Forestry to respond during fires. So when you had the Harmony Grove, the Witch, whatever they call the real bad one out east, when they had that same weekend, we had the one on Coronado Hills, they responded and predominantly took care of that one. So it's actually, they're trained through the Department of Forestry to respond to fires in that event, and we give them the equipment.
So this, on the warrant list, this particular charge wasn't for a specific place they came in and cleaned, it was the contract.
It's
and
the whole
whatever.
wherever we use them.
Yeah.
Yeah, wherever we use them. It's a great training thing for them, and we get a great deal.
Right, thank you.
We already voted.
I know, as I said, I probably should have put it, and I just thought I missed it.
You're having fun with me stumbling. Okay, moving right along to action items. 2.1, timing of capital facility fees. I'm going to ask for a staff report.
The staff report, I think, is kind of a culmination of the last year's worth of conversations. As indicated, there's been 2 meetings in the past where the boards discussed this issue. There's been representatives, both the public, the development community, and the Building Industry Association. And during those presentations, the topics that were brought forward by staff on areas of concern is what it was about, plus the government code section that actually defines it. I tried to cut it down to the one paragraph there. Again, the district does not establish terms of development. So we establish terms of service. So the collection of fees are done under a different section of the government code. Really not relevant to the conversation. It's just to clarify why and where we collect them. And what this really comes down to is not a fee deferral, because again, we don't set conditions of approval of a project. So we're not deferring anything. That's been thrown out there quite a bit. So some agencies have deferred fees. No, they haven't deferred them. They collect them at a different time from the water and wastewater side. Some have deferred raising their rates. Again, they just didn't raise them, not a deferral. So what this really comes down to the board is a similar conversation that staff had with the board, I want to say 3 years ago in 2010, when we went from collecting the fees at the time of the board approving the project. And again, just a little history here for the districts to understand it, is the Subdivision Map Act used to require before you approved a subdivision, you had to have a firm commitment of water and sewer. So if you want a commitment, you pay. That's what it was forever. The board modified that to building permit after discussing it with the development community in 2010, to where it was paid at building permit. What's before the board now and what the board's been talking about is deferral of fees to, we've heard occupancy, we've heard final inspection, we've heard utility release. Everybody kind of uses a different term. We definitely don't want to go to certificate of occupancy. That's putting ourselves out on the limb that you're going to have a problem. So what we looked at as staff is went back to the issues. I referenced them here in the staff memo. One of the questions, I believe it was Director Evans, had asked for clarification on how much money would be lost in interest. So we just put a simple calculation in there. That's a simple calculation that said we thought we'd collect $9 million this year. That's the interest rate we're collecting. We might have collected half and then collected the other half. This is a worst case. So bottom line is that just gives you a magnitude of order.
Our marginal rate wasn't actually 0.75 either, wasn't it?
No, that's just an
like
assumption of
0.5
what, that's
or
an assumption of what it
0.3
could be
something.
coming through. So just an assumption of a calculation.
Marginal is what we invest at today, so that is higher. It's actually higher than
Yeah, a little bit higher
0.75.
than what's
Yeah.
already, that you already see in your report. The second item was review the instruments, the financial instruments that are bulletproof, was the term. Well, considering we're not deferring anything, the more agreements you have in place, whether it be with a developer, a public agency, or whatever, the more agreements you have, it's the more we have to track, and it's the more there is to fall through the cracks. So there's really no purpose, because again, we're not deferring anything. This is coming down to a timing issue. So what we did, we took the existing policy, which you have a revised resolution here before you, which used to be the resolution, which, and it's on page 21, being on page 21. And we took the old resolution, which basically said you paid a building permit. We didn't change the style, because you have condos that have 10 units but 1 meter. So when you pay and you get your first occupancy, well, you pay all of them and you have to pay the meter, because we can't track part of the meter. It's just not worth the effort. So what we did is we modified the policy to change it to, instead of building permit, we changed it to final inspection or utility release. Keep in mind, we deal with 5 different agencies that have 5 different terms on how they call it. The bottom line intent of this is that they would be collected prior to final inspection of the building. So if they want to get a single-family home, they're ready to get utility release, okay, we don't come out, we don't unlock the meter, we don't do the final until the fees are paid. The issues that we had, or that staff presented as part of the risk to the district, just to mitigate it, and again, as I indicated, there's no silver bullet that says this is right or wrong. To do it, it does introduce risk to the district. There's no way around that. There's additional risk that we incur because of this. To try and minimize that, we did add a couple of sections, the issues that we have concern with. One is that when you do finally pay your fees, keep in mind, let's say Director Hernandez tried to pull a building permit, took you 2 years, or whatever the case may be, like your building addition, 4 years. If you would have not, if you didn't have a meter and you deferred paying your meter, we would have gone through 4 rate increases. So in other words, you're going to pay the fee that is then in place at the time you pay for your meter. That's the commitment. That's the risk that we say is out there to deferring. The Water Authority has the same policy. We're currently obligated, when we collect our fees, we have to collect their fees. So again, we just added that you're going to pay the Water Authority fee then in effect. The Water Authority does the same as they modify their fees first of the year, every year. We both have automatic ENR escalators in fees. That's the automatic escalation that takes place every year. Additionally, we just wanted to be very clear that there's no commitment. You go out and get a building permit and you go through that process, you're at risk. There's no commitment, there's no reservation. We're not saying water or sewer is going to be available for you when you come in and ask for it and pay your fees. We wanted to make sure that's very clear. Those were all put in there basically because of the Water Authority policy on payment of fees, current policy here with commitment, the drought management plan that we talked about, which if the drought is declared at a certain stage, they don't care if you got a building permit or not. If you don't have a meter paid and in the ground, you don't get water. So what we try to do is just put this policy into effect. We didn't change the style from condominium, multifamily, single family, minor subdivision, or major subdivision. It's all the same terminology. We just added the fact that it's not a building permit, it's now prior to final occupancy. So we did that in anticipation of the board wanting to either consider it tonight, or if there's any feedback I get from the board, we can bring it back at another time. I think this meets the intent of what the board's been looking to do. What I would ask is, we don't know how this is going to happen, how it's going to work out. We will be incurring additional fees to maintain this. The direction I've given so far is with the new cost of service study the board adopted, there's a cost that was established for locking, unlocking. It's already in the policy. So when we go through a project final, what we do is we collect what's called a project final fee. It's stuff that we have to go back and we can charge against. So what we will do is we'll collect that revenue in anticipation of having to go out in 3 months, a year, 2 years. We now have to track these things. What we've got to track is meters in the ground, no building permits. So it's something we are going to incur additional expenses doing it. I think that's a simple way to mitigate that. What I would recommend if the board would consider it to see if this works, it was brought up by Chair Martin at I think the first committee meeting, was consider it for a time period, maybe a year. Come back in a year. If there's any issues, deal with them, fix it, rescind the policy, modify the policy, whatever the board wants to do. So with that, I would answer any questions.
Thank you. We have 2 oral speakers. Mr. Hunsaker?
As chairman of the Property Owner Defense League, we promote private ownership property rights, but we also protect or concerned about defense of existing property rights for existing residents. We are opposed generally to any relaxation of fee requirements that indirectly or directly increase risk to existing occupant owners. We would like to make sure that it's understood that we reject the argument that this is a financial benefit to the community. If you have a developer and he receives any benefit at all, that is a direct or indirect subsidy. These we are opposed to generally because it comes at the expense of the public. Now, there's some arguments that by deferring payments it decreases cost. Well, that is true. But that is still a subsidy, and it is either an economic advantage to the developer in that they increase their bottom line, or it gives them an economic advantage in lowering their costs and giving them a competitive advantage in the marketplace. Both of those, I think, are inappropriate in addition to the increased risk aspect. Having a fee charged at the time of permit and making sure that the rules are fairly close to what preceded is, I believe, in the best public interest. Thank you.
Thank you. Michael McSweeney.
Afternoon, Chairman Martin, members of the board. Just wanted to say thank you. I know that some of you may have had concerns. I think that this is a smart policy move. As your general manager said, you can bring it back in a year to look it over. but we feel it's a needed component for our industry. There's a number of our members here in the audience. And we just want to say thank you for considering doing this and giving it a chance.
Thank you. Okay, board discussion?
That's it?
That's all the speakers we have. Yes, Director Podol.
Don't talk about my eyes again.
I can't read your eyes anymore.
You know, as I look at this, the word that kind of comes out is risk. And frankly, there's a risk by, let's call it developers, because they're saying, well, we don't want to pay you until the last moment. And that gives us a chance to have rate increases in between that time that they're building, of which they'll be subject to. The other part is the rest to the, let's call it our ratepayers. And so what I don't see is the why we are doing this, because the present system works pretty darn nice in the sense that developers have to come in with their money to pay up front. We commit that we are going to provide them with the water, and those people who buy the homes have that commitment beforehand. And it's pretty easy. Whereas if we change this policy, now we have to set certain types of safeguards in there. We have to deal with 5 different agencies to make sure that they don't give them the final permit without us being paid. I think that's more work for staff. We can't commit, and so we could very well be faced with a housing tract that has that people are ready to move into, and we can't supply the water because it hasn't been paid, and we're into a PR problem. So, you know, based upon a couple of things here having to do with the current policy working, right now we're at no risk at all to Vallecitos Water District, and that's my obligation. If they're paid up front, we can commit to it. It's less staff time, and I think that's probably about it. You know, the hardest thing for us to do here, the hardest thing for me to do here is to talk to people that I know in the audience that have been with the city for a long time and are requesting us to make policy changes, and then to say no, because these people are valued citizens in some cases, and people who are there to do the right thing for the public and provide housing. On the other hand, my job is to protect the ratepayers of Vallecitos, and at this time I just don't see any particular reason to change a policy that works and to create more risk for the ratepayers.
Thank you. Anyone else? Mr.
Thank you,
Snell.
Mr. President. And very valid points there, Director Floral. I think I'm coming in a little bit kind of behind the times, and I probably missed a couple of meetings last year, so forgive me if you've already kind of addressed some of these, but has there been any kind of benchmarking done with other districts as far as when these fees are collected?
Yes, if you'd like, I could provide those presentations to you. There was quite a survey that the BIA had done many years ago. That was part of the presentation last time out of, I'm going to use rough numbers here.
Sure.
Let's say there were 150 statewide that had done it. Out of that 150, a fair amount of the programs where they had considered had already expired. Some were actually updating it. The recent action, City of Carlsbad added that provision for their wastewater fee. They did not include it for their water side. City of Chula Vista, I believe they upped theirs for another trial period to see how it continues to work. The fee deferral component in general, I'd say out of the 150, maybe it was 250. I'd say 99% of them were cities, maybe a school district, things like that. There were some water agencies, some were referenced. And again, because of the fact that we don't establish conditions of development, by law, we don't do that. It's not a fee deferral issue. The few agencies that were referenced as fee deferrals, there were a couple that deferred raising the rates, not
Yeah,
payment of
Dennis,
fees.
maybe I can clarify. I think I understand the deferral part of it.
Very few
Um,
water and sewer agencies do it.
Yeah. What about the benchmarking of the timing of the payment of the fee?
As far as against other water and sewer agencies, again, the study that the BIA had done and the contact that we had around here, there's very few water and sewer agencies that do it. The ones that have considered it have moved to the final inspection.
Okay.
There's just not a lot to compare it to benchmark, but the ones who have done it, they've considered that final inspection.
Okay.
I will actually send you those presentations, though, just for your viewing pleasure.
Thank you. So, in hearing the speakers, and I certainly can see that there's a risk component for everybody involved here. But I also think that you can take on some risk smartly, and you can do things that help mitigate risk, and we should continuously look for options to do things that are going to have an overall benefit for the community. And I certainly, not to debate one of the speakers, but I do think with the tough times that we've had, especially with economic development and development in general, and not just in San Diego County, but throughout the country, if there is something that we can do that will help boost the economy, pull us out of this recession a little faster, create jobs and all the other benefits that come with that, I think that there is a responsibility there on our behalf as well as leaders in the community. And so I can kind of see it a couple of different ways. I also see it as kind of a fairness issue. It's their money. And we're going to collect interest on their money because we're requiring them to pay for something earlier than maybe they should. So there's a lot of different angles here. And I'll see what everybody else has to say, but it's a tough one.
Thank you. Director Hernandez.
Yes, I was the one that wanted to have this brought back to us to review, and I just want to identify that this is an option. The developer that is looking at this and understanding where we are, 2 years ago or so, when everybody was fat and sassy and no drought on the horizon, this may be a slam dunk, let's defer this. Now, because of the caveat, I mean, this is a risk that the developer is going to take for those dollars potentially they're going to save. So again, this is an option that they can put in their toolbox to get a project accomplished. I think it's a win-win for the folks involved, and what little risk we have, because I think I don't think it's actually legal to sell a home unless you finally have everything certified that you can move into it. You could perhaps go into an escrow, but the sale is not something that can actually be culminated. So with that, I am definitely in support of this, and that's all I had.
Okay.
If I may?
Certainly, Director Evans.
I have a lot of respect for what Director Podol said. The current policy does work, and the ratepayers are an important part of what being on this board is about. On the other hand, reading through this, I feel the risks are minimal. I do understand there's a risk, but it seems to go both ways. I feel the risk that a builder is taking and not choosing to do this and worrying about the risk of there being either no water because of the drought or there being a fee later is one they need to make on each part of their development. I think on our part, however, it's important that we do insert the caveat that this is brought back for review, and I think a year at the minimum. Well, 6 months, but I don't know what's happening in 6 months, so a year. I don't want it to be longer than a year, I guess is what I'm saying. And also, I would just want to confirm something, but I forgot. I was thinking about blue eyes.
Yeah, see, his eyes are blue, both of them.
Looking at my M&Ms up there. No, what I wanted to confirm was that this does not mean if a developer chose to pay as normally, just to come in and pay as he has been doing on our current policy. They could pay, and at that time, I mean, not waiting, it's right now it's at building permit, correct?
Mr. Simmons called me, he assured me he's gonna come in and pay everybody's fees up front. Just because, yeah.
Fees up front.
No, they can pay it anytime they want. The way we wrote this is they can pay it anytime up to.
Up to,
Yeah,
that's how
we
I
put-
read it.
yes.
But I just wanna,
And and to be, what's gonna happen is, like I said, we go through an annual increase. The Water Authority goes through an annual increase. We know it's coming. We don't control the Water Authority whatsoever. All we do is pass it on. They send us a new sheet and say, here, collect this. That's it. So if the developer chooses to come in and pay him before, he can't pay one and not the other. They both have to be collected. And then they're committed.
and
So it's-
once the money's been accepted, then we are committing to give them water.
Yes.
That's the bottom line.
That's the bottom line, and that also falls in line with, I want to say it's stage 3, maybe it's stage 5. It's the worst drought level component. What the worst drought level component says in the uniform policy we adopted is that if you have a building permit issued and you've paid your fees, you will get water. If you don't have one or the other, you're out of luck. So,
Okay. And the development department, people, individuals, and
Community.
corporations are totally aware of that.
Yeah.
Okay. And then my final question, oh, I can't focus, I'm so sorry.
no blue eyes.
It's the blue eyes or the M&Ms, I'm not sure which. I was gonna say.
Okay, well, maybe-
Oh, I wanted to ask, I'm so sorry. I just wanted to ask you on staff's professional opinion on how risky you think it is for us to not get all 5 in a row? Or having this get approval and then we're being stuck with them? You said we have to get all 5?
You lost me.
All 5 agencies. So if 4 agencies out of the 5, are we then forced to do something?
No, I think what'll happen, Director Evans, there's one statement I put specifically in there that says the bottom line is the water service shall remain locked until fees are received. That's our only security we have, is that we'll lock it, we'll pull it, we'll do whatever we can. I think Ken has already reached out to 3 of the agencies, so we've got to do a little work with a 5th one, just to make sure in the process, because it's just different. In the past, when they saw our name on the plans, that was the last we ever heard from them. So everything went forward regardless of what we said. We just got to modify some procedures to make sure it happens. I feel we're protected. Could it happen? Absolutely. But there's risk everywhere.
Well, based on that, I would be willing to support it, but I would ask our developers to make their choices seriously and consider all options. In the next year, we'll see how it would go. I would can I move for adoption,
You can move, ask for a second?
or you wanted something else?
No, I'll go into discussion. Mike,
I'd like to move for adoption.
there's a move, looking for a second?
Second,
Second, discussion.
can I clarify the motion?
Certainly.
Because it moved, was, but did it have within that motion the 1 year?
It did not.
Would Tamika like to put that in, put it in?
I would like to move we accept the resolution with the addition of a 1-year return for review.
Second,
Jim, will second it?
yes.
Discussion. For what it's worth, I think the policy is there, it's been there for a long time, and it's worked really well. When the policy first went in, people weren't spending 25 to 30% of their house cost on extractions due from them by fire departments, cities, water districts, everyone else, school districts. The extractions now are 25 to 30% of what a homeowner pays for, the extractions. So that's changed, so that could mean a policy change. And I think the risk level is sufficiently small that it's well worth, we're not really, I don't believe we're risking anything to the ratepayers of Vallecitos Water District with our proficient and wonderful staff that misses nothing. Ask them and they'll tell you.
Amen.
So I'm sure they will continue doing the same wonderful job and we'll have no problems with that.
I can attest to that.
Yeah. So I don't see the risk. I think that I'd rather be a leader than a follower, and I think we'll be the first water district that does this in San Diego County, and it's worth a try. And if anything does go wrong, staff will alert us immediately, and if nothing goes wrong, we'll still see it back here in a year to discuss any costs that may have been equated with it, any real costs. not interest that we were taking from them, real costs. But that's my opinion. So with that, that's for a roll call vote.
Wait,
Oh, sorry.
Just would like to make
Director Poole?
a comment to say that, first of all, I don't think everything's going up. So city's gonna be caught up in their permits, school districts, it's all going up. So I don't think that this is gonna have any effect on the purchase of a home or the value of a home. So having said that, I don't think it's gonna be taken advantage of, because I don't think it's worth the risk to a developer to say, well, the rates may come down. So, just my opinion.
And I'm sorry, I might have inferred something incorrectly, that the rates are going up for house purchasing. It's gonna continue to
Yes.
happen. And
All permits.
government is gonna
Yes.
keep requiring more and more of an extraction
Yes.
as time goes on.
We
That
did-
will never stop.
We did lower our sewer rates last time.
Yeah, all right. But over 5 years, they went up. So I guess, I didn't mean housing would change.
Oh, that's all right.
My thought is that we all need to do our part in this economy to help stimulate it. Just because the guy in Washington says it's stimulated, doesn't mean it is. And I think that all special districts should look at what they can do to help the building industry, because that's the industry that's gonna lead us out of, I believe, what we're in right now. Because once you build a house and they have to buy furniture, carpeting, groceries, a new family moves in, everything happens with growth. The freeway system you see out here today, although not perfect, paid for by growth. It wasn't paid for by people that lived here. It was people that were moving in and paying all those extra taxes that they're being charged. So people don't realize without growth, you don't get the infrastructure. And some of this infrastructure, even we're dependent upon in the future. And we're dependent upon growth as well. So anything we do to stimulate growth is a plus to me. That's worth a year. So again, unless there's anything else from anyone, roll call vote, please.
Facility Resolution 1441. Director Evans?
Yes.
Director Hernandez?
Yes.
Director Polo?
No.
Director Spinella?
Yes.
Director Martin?
Yes. Thank you very much. Thank you, staff.
Thank you.
Okay, moving right along to 2.2. 2.2 is board outreach, public outreach. And
It's
is,
gonna be fun after this, you should stay.
who's got?
There's gonna be an attorney's report,
They
Jan.
got houses to build. Hurry up with those houses.
Yes, what you have before you today, as at the last board meeting, a public awareness, public policy committee was called for the purpose of discussing board outreach. This has been something that's been a topic for Director Snella's benefit here. It's come up several times in the past few years on, the board has seen, we've showed as part of the business plan and our strategic goals, if you looked at it, we have a tremendous amount of public outreach we already do to all the schools, the tours, Jack's Pond, you name it, we do it. The topic that's come forward is public outreach on behalf of the board. So what the committee came up with was some basic, you've got the minutes in there that you approved today, you've got the basic topics that the committee came up with. And when we had the meeting, what I kind of recommend here, what the board has historically done would be if they come up with packaged presentations, lack of better term, somebody's cell phone's checking. Come up with a packaged PowerPoint, packaged handouts, whatever the case may be. So if any of the five of you go out on behalf of the district, you have the same speech. You're not getting sidelined by a topic that hits you off. And then the preference of the board, the committee as well, was if at all times it would be better if they had a staff member with them. So that keeps things on track. Obviously, having a staff member with them requires scheduling between board members. We have limited staff. So that's some scheduling stuff that we can take care of. The committee did give us some rough topics. I think we actually already have most of these presentations in different formats. We do a lot. We'll fine tune it to where something the board could look at. The topics that came back here before you today, and I think kind of the way I wrote the memo was, normally the committee, when they would do something like this, they report to the board. The board would normally say, okay, you go work it out, committee, bring back the final process. We'll look at it and say, that looks great. So all the presentations, all that stuff would be worked out by the committee. The item that's not covered in here is, as I noted, In the current, was it 190, policy 190, there is a provision, section 2.2B, that allows per diem compensation for outreach for a board member on behalf of the board. When the board, we do something, we do an outreach program, we hold a meeting here, we do something like that. That's outreach that is intended to be covered by the policy. What's not intended is if the board is to go out and just do these to an HOA, to do it to a service club, anything like that. So what we have are two issues here before you tonight. One is I would recommend that the board, if they want to move forward with this, just direct the committee to go ahead and work through the program, bring back the final product for review, and then you can adopt them. And then asking for some direction on how the board would like to entertain the topic of per diems and expenses associated with attending this kind of outreach. So that would be the direction. I did speak with the chair about this at length in the pre-board. You do have a committee workshop coming, board workshop coming up in March 10th, 7th, whenever that.
Yep.
March 11th, I know I'd get one of the days right. If this is, we won't be getting to that point of having to worry about this topic from the outreach now, because it's going to take us 30 to 60 days. If it pleases the chair, this would be a good topic just to add to the workshop, and then the board can have that kind of a general conversation over, okay, what's a per diem? What's the role of the board? When should we get paid per diems? When shouldn't we? That way you don't have to worry about all of the different scenarios that could apply, and you can deal with it during the workshop.
Right.
Just a clarification, Mr. President.
Yes.
That would be the general discussion about per diem.
Yeah.
Not specific to this particular outreach program.
But I think you would be talking
Oh, yeah.
about, I think you roll this right
Yeah,
into it.
yeah. So
Absolutely.
all of the above.
All the
Yeah.
above.
Very good, very
Yeah.
good.
All the above.
Yeah.
Okay. Any director comments?
Just, we've talked about this, Director and President Martin and I were at the committee. We do have all of this information in various locations putting together. I think it's going to be well received in the community, and moving this per diem to the workshop makes perfect sense. And if, do we want to segregate that portion and this, or put them all together and talk about the whole thing at the workshop?
I think do it at the workshop. We don't need to make a commitment on this right now.
Yeah, you're not going to be doing this between now and the workshop, so it
Right.
doesn't really matter.
Perfect.
I'd like to see us continue working on doing it,
Mhm.
so that we're ready for it. And I would just add to that, if I may, that the meeting was held, and Tom was there, Dennis was there, Lisa was there, and we talked about the larger picture, which is what we're adding at, and then to get it down to soup and nuts to bring to the board to say, okay, what do you guys think?
Mhm.
Or do you have any input, or do you think we did something wrong? And part of the board outreach that I thought when we first came up was, this is as participatory as you want to be. If you want to participate in it, you certainly can, but if you don't, you can opt out. But it puts a face on Vallecitos Water District. And being the elected officials, I believe that's the face that should be out there, especially with the upcoming trials and tribulations that we may or may not be going through in the next year or two. They need to have a face of reason, someone that they have put in that office versus staff. But I completely agree the staff person should always be with us, so we don't get led astray, and that we need one sheet or one thing to follow, no matter where we go, to deliver the same message to every group. So that's my thought. I will just mention this because I don't want to get in trouble. I was asked the other day, the Lions Club in San Marcos, a relatively small service club of 15 to 20 people, asked me if I would come and talk about water. And I said, well, we're working on this outreach system, and we're going to have it perfected in a few months. They said, we need someone tomorrow, and Thursday. And I went, well, let me check with the board because I don't want to get in trouble. I said, but I've always, for 16 years, in other positions, I've always gone to them 2 or 3 times a year. So they're more like friends than a group, but they wanted to know what was going on. So unless anybody had an objection, I wasn't going to go, and all I was going to talk about was what I've done the last year. Unless someone has a real heartburn with it, let me know. Otherwise,
Mr. President?
yes, sir.
Yeah, no objections whatsoever. In fact, I would encourage you. I think, we gotta not lose sight that we're a small community. Most of us, we all know each other before we were up here. We go to the same events, we support the same charities and causes. I've only been on the board now for not even a month, and I got neighbors coming up and asking me questions. All of a sudden, I'm a water expert. I think it's from all the efforts that I've seen the district and the board be working towards, as far as with your transparency and your outreach and all the different ways that you do it. This is something I think is a great idea, and I want to echo your points, President Martin, that as times do get tougher, and we know they are, we're going to not only be asked a lot of tough questions, but potentially held accountable. And we need to be out there as much as possible communicating with the community in any way, shape, or form. Now, to the per diem piece, I think we can discuss that in the along with all the other per diem discussion that we're going to have later. I would just throw out there at this point that we should be mindful that we should, operate lean and mean and protect the ratepayers as much as we can, and we can discuss that more when we get to that point.
Anyone else? About me going to the Lions Club tomorrow?
As you said, it's what you've been doing, not, how many units we've been using, where the water, and so I think on that kind of a level, I think it's a pretty safe conversation.
I think you would do fine at the Lions Club, but I would like to say that I've had several people and groups and organizations ask me to tell them what I've been doing as 1 year as a water board member. And I have turned away from all of that for fear that I was going to say or do the wrong thing. And they weren't really asking, what are the policies of the board? They wanted to know, as a private individual, what is it like to be on the board of a water special district? How is that different than being on the council? But I've been nervous since we've had some discrepancies about our feelings as a board on what one shouldn't do. So I feel like if they're asking you how you feel, that's separate. And yet, as you've said before, you still are at the water district. I love that you're putting something together for a general presentation. I think that not only should staff be there, but I think it's a compliment if a staff member is part of the presentation, even if you're doing, all they're doing is leading the button pushing if you do a presentation. I don't feel staff should just sit on the side. I would like to see it more joint, but that may be a different discussion. I just want to say that, and I also have spoken with Dennis and Lisa about an HOA who's has some questions in my division. We're just waiting to see what they want to do, but I just think it's really important that we figure out when you're there, are you telling your friends about what you do as a board member, or are you representing the board? If you're representing the board, then we really don't have a complete policy at this time. And that would concern me. And we don't also have a complete decision, even as a state, on where we're going with the water. So I'm not exactly saying no, I'm just saying I have hesitations. I think my response would be to ask them to wait, but I'm not telling you.
Yeah. Old Blue Eyes?
Not really. I think Betty brought in some good points. A lot of it, they want to know about you. That's one thing, and the other is, I would imagine we'd all be talking about generalities. It'd be a lot easier if we had a format, which I think you guys are talking about putting together. But, no, I'm okay.
I think I'd just like to add that I think better to answer your question, as an elected official, I think if anybody stops you and asks you anything, you have to do it. You're voted in by them.
You have to do it?
In my opinion, if someone
You do
comes and
have to.
asks you,
Oh.
you were elected by those people to put you in office, if they want answers from you, you better give them, or why they
Oh, I
put you in office.
totally agree with giving answers, but sometimes you can delay it a short while.
Mr. President, if I can just add one more thing, maybe, unless I'm missing something, Jeff, from a legal standpoint, I've learned real quickly that there's probably a water resource educational conference or something just about every other week that we are going to be attending. And I personally don't see that there's any problem whatsoever that if we take what we learned at those conferences from a statewide perspective, even from a local perspective, and we want to share those with the local group of what's going on out there and some of the challenges that have been reported to us. And certainly, you're not representing the entire board when you're at these events. You're one of 5 and you're going to share the information and pass that along. I think that's not only okay to do, I think it should be expected of us, because these conferences that we're attending, we're being paid to go to them. And we should provide that value back to the ratepayers and give them that information.
Thank you, and address that, because I'm thinking back why I didn't have problems in earlier years, and it's because the very first thing I would say to a group is, I am one person on a board of 5. So what you may hear may be tainted the way I see it. So I've always done that at any meeting I go to or talk about, because I am only one of 5. So that's a disclaimer I give right up front.
And if I might, to Director Sinella's comments, I think the whole intent, why the board's been leery in the past of doing this, and why I believe the approach of the committee is good, is you're going to hear 27 versions of the same topic. And because the water and wastewater industry is so complicated, that was the intent of the committee, so that when you do go out, you have the same story. Because I'll tell you right now, you'll hear Lake Folsom is dry, you'll hear Lake Folsom has 17%, but a 12% dead pool. You'll hear everything there is about statistical facts, and they'll all be different. So I think that's just been the fear of the board in the past, is there's so many stories floating around there. If you have the local issues are usually pretty defined locally, and you have a pretty good idea. I think the concern the board's had is you'll find very quickly, water is not a San Diego County issue. Water is a Western United States issue, because there is no water in San Diego County. So everything we talk about is a much bigger global thing, and I think that's why the concern of the board has been to get a constant message. You obviously have the right as a board member to go out and speak to whoever you want. I think it's just the messaging that we want to be consistent on.
Yeah, that being said, in the way of disclaimer, if staff has someone they can send with me tomorrow at 11:30, Acapulco, I will be there, so if they want to be there, that's fine by me.
You might be on your own tomorrow, Director.
That's fine. Just, it's free lunch. And it's non-per diem, so I'm just there.
Tom will probably go.
Yeah, Tom, there you go, free lunch.
There you have it.
Yes,
We'll, if I might, we'll talk about this per diem issue, Mike, when we get into the workshop, but we got to be real careful, because the law has changed in the last 5-10 years, and is very specific as to what you get a per diem for. And
We're not
we
talking
can.
about that tonight, though.
No, we're not, but I'm saying that that's this issue comes into play there, and I think we want to address it at that time, so.
I made this.
Very sensitive to that, thank you.
Anyone else?
I did, but did you?
I'm done.
Director Evans?
I just wanted you to know my concern, not that I'm worried about you speaking.
I understand.
Okay,
I just want it to be out there. I want it to be fitted, that's what I'm doing. No
excellent.
surprise to anybody.
There's no action needed on this information, and we'll just continue moving forward.
Thank you. 2.3, City of San Marcos State of the City meeting attendance. There was a State of the City, oh, you go ahead.
So there is a per diem discussion here now.
Yeah.
The per diem for this requires approval by the board if the board chooses to go. Historically, they've paid expenses. You had this conversation last 2 weeks ago on the chamber seating of the new, what do you call them? Officers. Board officers, installation luncheon. So this is for the board's pleasure, whether or not to pay expenses or per diem.
I would suggest we pay and go.
Did we what?
I'm sorry?
What do you suggest?
That we do pay the per diem, and those members that would like to attend.
At the last board meeting, we talked about the, I guess you might call it the State of San Marcos address. And then we talked about Chamber of Commerce as well. And I think it was suggested at that time that we pay for the meal and not the per diem. So I think that's a great way to go. I think it shows respect for to the ratepayers and as well pays for what we do there. So.
And Jim, you weren't here for that, the last meeting, but we did talk about that, and we said we pay for the meal, but not per diem, because there could be just a plethora of those, because if we're going to San Marcos, we have to look at Carlsbad potentially, you have to look at the county potentially.
Escondido.
Escondido, Vista, I mean, there could be a lot you could get involved in, because my next question on this is gonna be, do you have scheduled for our next agenda to have Cal State's
That's the one I was thinking of, I'm sorry.
Cal States is coming up.
Cal States is coming up as well, so
Yes.
that'll be coming forward as well.
Okay, so I would say let's not, let's take this up in that conversation that we're gonna have about per diems, but at this time, just thank the good people for paying our way to go and mingle with everyone, and let people know about water at these events. That's a
So
motion.
we don't need so you move, we pay expenses only?
Expense, yeah, no per diem.
I would second that.
At this time, we're gonna relook at,
On this particular city,
Yes.
San Marcos,
Yes.
we pay expenses only for those who attend.
yes.
I would second that.
Okay, all in
Roll
favor?
call? No, it's not a roll call.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any against? Any abstaining?
Thank you.
Perfect, thank you very much. Okay, moving to that, now we get to the easy part. General manager report.
What do I have today? Only one item, actually. The district, on an annual basis, you'll get, we've managed to do pretty well for the last few years, but we are part of the AQUA JPIA, the Joint Powers Insurance Agency, which is a self-pool insurance. So we did receive from them for the last year what they call their President's Award for a very extremely low premiums as far as both accident and injury and any claims paid out. Your basic year loss includes workers' comp claims, payments out, less than 20%. Where this comes into play, as you may recall, last year we got back a check. So what it does, whatever we pay in, it gets deducted during the year. Any payouts, then there's a proportionate amount which is above and beyond what we need next time, they actually refund it. So what this goes to show is basically a very good job on behalf of Jerome is here. He's the, oh gosh, what's the title now? Regulatory Affairs and Safety. That's probably the wrong title, but Jerome's in charge of all the safety programs and all the regulatory affair issues. So Annette Dombrowski is his safety officer. So they're responsible for all the safety training, which is very elaborate. So it's a direct kudos to them on the low claims. No action taken, it's just an information item. The rest I will be containing to closed session.
Okay. District Legal Counsel, Mr. Scott, glad to see you back.
Sometimes I feel like nobody listens to me. I feel like I'm at my house, well, anyway, I think, if it's okay with you guys, I think if we can get in the habit of doing roll calls, because you started to do it the last time. I think because of the recent amendments to the Brown Act that start this year, it's probably a good idea or a good practice, even on small matters, to go ahead and take a roll call vote. And then I think we're going to be, we're doing that with our resolutions and ordinances, and it's really been our custom and practice. But that way it's reflected in the minutes, and I think then would comply with what we're supposed to do.
And I must apologize, I remember you saying that now, but I have forgotten it.
Well,
So you're right.
what we do is we
I
do
listened, I just didn't.
We do actually reflect in the minutes by board member
Yeah.
how you voted. We're just not doing it by roll call. You want to do
Yeah,
roll call?
I think it's a good practice. I think we
Okay.
might as well go ahead and do it.
You're right, I didn't listen to you.
I am happy to report, though, that a case came down just a couple of weeks ago relating to Proposition 218 and the notices that we have to give when it's really it's quite a process and procedures with respect to property-related fees and charges. And basically, it was an old law professor of mine, actually, who was on the Court of Appeals down here, wrote an opinion that it involved yeah, I know, this was a young man when he went on the, anyway, the case involves the Imperial Irrigation District. And after holding a public protest election, because the public has an opportunity to come in and protest any increases to rates and charges, they increase rates for water uses for a number of different categories of users, like we do now. You have commercial, you have residential, you can even have agricultural, things like that. And the Farm Bureau argued that Prop 218 required that the district conduct separate protest elections for each different rate class. Okay, so we have all these different, all the ag users that have an opportunity to protest it, all the residents would have an opportunity to protest it, and frankly, the court, the district conducted a number of them, and basically adopted, when it did its rate protest, an entire omnibus scheme, and adopted all of them, just like we did. And the court disagreed with the Farm Bureau and held that there is no legal requirement that prohibits the district from holding a single protest election, despite the fact there's different categories. It's a 55-page decision. I won't bore you with all the gory details, but there's some good language in there that helps give us guidance for how we can do this. And I think that it was initially was an unpublished decision, but a group of lawyers and public agency lawyers sent letters, and basically we got the court to go ahead and publish the decision. So now it's law. I suspect it may be appealed, but I think it's a sound decision and will help us in the future.
At the last meeting, you're number 2 man.
Yes.
Malaise. I passed him a copy of someone's 218 that was two-sided, 2-page. It was pretty simple.
Yeah.
Compared to what we did.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that complied with the law, I mean.
Well, I
Can we
mean, but
do
see,
something a
that's the
little
kind of
nicer?
things that, you know, those are the things that are developing. But the cases like this help to give us guidance, and simple is better.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. No questions? Okay, San Diego County Water Authority.
Well, the last meeting was quite long and full, and of course, one of the main subjects is the drought. And I know we'd received some emails and the media clips where the San Diego Water County Authority we'd sort of said, you know, there's a drought, but we've preserved water, and we're not gonna worry a whole lot this first year. That was their initial response, which I think the intent was our ratepayers have invested a great deal of money to build reservoirs and set up desal and find ways of storing the water. But it kind of came off like we weren't concerned enough. So there was a lot of discussion during the meeting on that we need to be sure we're not sounding like we don't have to conserve, and how can we support the north and not, you know, there's a lot of talk about that in the committee meeting. The final line was that everyone, of course, felt that we're all in this as a state together, and that the intent wasn't to say, oh, we don't have to worry. And you'll see since that point, after that is when actually the governor came out with the drought, is that they were saying, of course, we're going to conserve. We already conserve, we're more than conserved. Northern California hasn't ever really conserved. And some of them, like Sacramento, has an issue of where they're being asked to conserve, but some of them still don't have meters, so they don't even know how to measure if they're conserving. So it was an interesting, when we were saying this is beyond our only local region, because although we need to conserve, and obviously our water isn't going to last forever, and it's foolish to assume that, it has a lot to do with what's going on up there and the Folsom Dam and what's happening at the deltas. So it was quite interesting and very, not heated, but undertones of deep concern on how to present the issue. Then I noticed we went through the cost of service study, and Dennis, you may need to help me on this, but we're studying what's coming up now is how the rates are going to change for next year. Where will they be putting the desal in 2016, and all of the variances of opinions amongst the districts of who should pay for it and what, and is it treatment or is it transportation? Of course, you know, San Diego's looking at, they're doing their whole thing with the directed potable.
IPR and DPR?
Yeah, the IPD, and they're kind of thinking, well, we probably are going to need the desal, so maybe we should only get it once in a while. And they've had a task force that's gone already, a small task force that's done 11 meetings already, and they had a book about this thick of trying to come out with it. We're all in it together. It will be a very interesting discussion. I know Dennis is a little ahead of me on it because the managers get together and go through it, and it probably won't come to a head until March or April. But the interesting thing is how this timing of the drought, with the opening of the desal, makes such a difference in how this goes. And I think it's a good thing in a way that the drought's there, because it puts us at a realistic point of what is it and why do we have the desal and how are we going to address the issue. So that was just, it was very, very very interesting meeting. The other thing I noticed was and I thought I brought it to bring, and I don't know what I did with it, was the San Diego Water Authority, I believe it was, had sent a letter out recommending that we're all gonna join together on this drought issue, and I noticed that Vallecitos was one of the water districts that didn't support it, and nor did the city of San Marcos. I'm trying to think of the exact words, I'm so sad I left it out. Oh, here it is. It's the mayors of Southern California cities are trying to get together with the Metropolitan Water District. I'm sorry, I knew I was gonna say it wasn't the drought. The water district is looking at raising their rates again. And they're already talking about bumping them up. If I've got this right, they think they need a 5%?
Five minimum, probably up to
A
7.5.
5% rate. This is in spite of the fact that they're millions and millions of dollars over in their reserves. And any of that fund, they've chosen to do it on unscheduled projects rather than give it to back to the ratepayers. So they were trying to get the mayors and these other water districts to sign on to just, they don't raise their rates.
If I might, I did speak with the city manager, I think it was a week ago. He called and indicated that they had approached San Marcos. Did we have any concerns? I just gave him some feedback, and he said, okay, he'd take it to the mayor to sign. So,
Who approached San Marcos?
the Water Authority.
The water
San
authority.
Diego County Water Authority.
All the cities, all the mayors, they're trying, because keep in mind, out of all of the agencies in Southern California, San Diego County, most of the water utilities are separate from the cities. They just want to get the political body of the cities to be involved as well.
I'm sorry, I did find this little letter. May I read this little, this is
Certainly, go right ahead.
Okay, this is from Tom Warnham, who's the chair of the board. As you know, MWD this month began its public rate setting process for 2015 and 2016 and is proposing rate increases of 1.5 per year. MWD management is proposing these increases in the wake of 2 years of excessive revenue collection by MWD, in which MWD collected $600 million more than it needs to meet all of its budget requirements. MWD's cash reserves in its rate stabilization fund are projected to reach $800 million this fiscal year, which is $320 million above its maximum reserve limit. What does MWD staff recommend be done with this overcollected revenue? Spend it on unbudgeted uses. Despite the significant cash pile, MWD management also plans to ask its board to suspend its property tax limitation again, which Dennis can explain if we need it, in fiscal years 2015 and 2016, which will result in the collection of more than $4 million more than originally scheduled in property taxes from taxpayers in each of those 2 years. Last Thursday, during SANDAG's annual planning retreat, I had the opportunity to address this issue with those in attendance. Participants included the mayors of most of the 18 cities in San Diego County. I asked them to engage and to help us and our MWD delegates make the case to MWD's board that it should not increase rates and should instead provide rate relief to our ratepayers. The mayors agreed to help, and yesterday 14 of our mayors sent the attached letter to the mayors of the more than 140 cities in MWD's service area, alerting them to the issues and asking them to engage at MWD. And
Who's it signed by?
this is signed by, this was Tom Warner, who's
Tom is.
the chairman of, he spoke to us here, he's chair of the board of the Water Authority. And then the letter, I just got a copy of the letter, and it had just quite a few cities on it, and I looked and I didn't see San Marcos, and I didn't see on the other one a signature from us on, this isn't it. I thought there was something with the cities on it, but I think I brought the wrong one. So,
Well, I think that's a good thing, because I didn't see anything in front of us to agree with that.
no, I'm just asking if they had been involved.
Yeah,
It hadn't come to me personally. so
Yeah,
I
the Water
thought it
Authority
would've
reaches
gone
out
through
on
the
our
managers.
behalf. As Director Evans on the board, they reach out on our behalf to do that type of stuff. That's their charge. With respect to the cities, this is just something the Water Authority decided to do to reach out to all the other mayors as another political body. I did speak to the city manager about it last week and told him I was fine with it. Whether or not I got to the mayor to sign, don't know.
May not have,
Don't know.
just to let you know
It's all
what we're
part
up
of,
against.
it's all part of the bigger political, we're at war with men over everything.
Well, if you go back to it,
And we're keeping the attorneys
Yeah,
and their
no-
grandkids in all the Ivy League colleges.
not to defend Matt by any means or say it's right or wrong, but you go back 2 years, their revenues were down to 187 million for their total pot. So what they did to keep their revenues up is they did defer a lot of capital improvements. That they are a cash pay agency. They try to pay cash as they go. So they did defer hundreds of millions of dollars worth of improvements, took them out of their budgets so they wouldn't spend and raise additional rates. So they're just shifting the money around now. I mean, it's 1 year, but you gotta keep in mind with Met, 700, 800, 900, $1 billion is 3 months worth of reserves that they can burn up in a heartbeat. It's a lot of money. It moves pretty quick.
And I guess my question is with this bigger thing, we should be outside of here, but, you know, Met's run by a board, same as Vallecitos is, same as San Diego County Water Authority is. Do we assume they're all asleep at the wheel at Met and we're the only ones that know what we're doing?
No.
That seems to be the assumption. Don't trust that board.
It's,
They
you
don't
know,
what they're
it's
doing.
a moving target depending on the decade.
I do have a question because of what you just said, Mr. President.
Certainly, go ahead, Director Hernandez.
At the last conference I attended, they were talking about just this issue about bonds.
Mhm.
And they're talking now about century bonds.
Mhm.
And I just heard you said that Metropolitan is cash and carry.
Mhm.
You know, I don't think I know of any city that's a cash and carry.
They do still have a lot of bonded debt as well.
Oh,
Yeah,
they do?
they have a tremendous amount of bonded debt,
Oh.
but they also try to go pay go.
Oh, I see.
So as they're building capital, now, obviously, when they built Diamond Valley, they didn't have the cash to build Diamond Valley.
Right.
So if they build a Weimer or one of the new treatment plants, they're gonna obviously do the same thing we
I see.
do.
Okay, very
But, so I'm sorry about that, but a lot of the other stuff, they try to pay cash as they go to keep that debt
Thank you for
issuance
the
cost down.
clarification.
Yeah.
And don't they have unfunded debt employee liabilities?
OPEB, massive.
Well, there's a place to try to make it up. I mean, they're gonna have to make it up somewhere.
You have a massive unfunded.
So let them do it. Let them do what they have to do. I don't know. Sometimes I think, you know, it's like listening about Poseidon.
Yeah.
I can see all the lawsuits starting on Poseidon, and there hasn't been one drop of water yet. And I can see all the lawsuits about who said what, how much everybody gets. None of that was decided up front. Where were the attorneys then? I don't know. Some of it just seems senseless government. But what do I know? Thank you for a very interesting report. Are you done with the report?
I am, thank you.
Thank you very much. Encina Wastewater Capital Improvement Committee. That would be one of you. That's it. Oh, that's it.
Oh,
That's non-blue eyed.
I'm sorry, yeah, I'm sorry, I missed the meeting. I was on my adventure, so I hope Director Polo has.
Okay, Director Polk?
I was not at that meeting, and I haven't been in a meeting since our last meeting.
Yeah, they have.
So I have a meeting next Tuesday, CIP, and then.
Director's reports on travel, conferences, seminars? Anyone?
Haven't gone anywhere yet.
You haven't met with staff yet?
Been here a month.
You haven't met with staff yet? Don't you get one of these?
I've met with these gentlemen and I left, so.
Okay, great, thank you. Now we're going to be moving into closed session.
Now we have other business?
Sorry about that.
4.1? Did I miss that on your sheet?
Yes, that's
4.1, other business?
5.1, Director.
4.1.
4.1.
Oh, no. Oh, other business, I'm very sorry, I'm very sorry. Quarterly business expenses are attached.
This is per board policy. On a quarterly basis, we provide you a breakdown of what expenses were paid for, reimbursed. We're also obligated to report per diems by other agencies, which are the two gyms from Encina and Director Evans from the Water Authority. It's information, note and file, no action required.
Yeah, that wasn't titled very well. It's here somewhere.
Quarterly board expenses?
Page 26.
Yeah. Let's see, it's 27. But I mean, it doesn't say where it was from.
You want a cover sheet on it?
I didn't see one.
No, there isn't one.
Yes, if you want to,
Do you want one?
Was the title missing?
Yeah.
On that
Yeah.
that's all.
Oh, okay.
I mean, I know.
Sorry.
Okay, so it's there. And that's quarterly?
Yes.
Is there a yearly one that comes
Oh.
at the end of the year?
Yeah.
Can you push a button, the computer adds up all?
Put them together, yeah.
Check it out.
Give
on the
aggregate.
dashboard.
Just for us to have.
Put 'em
I
together.
guess. If it's not required, just let us have.
Yeah, just an aggregate for the year.
Multiply by 4.
Oh, that's great having that dashboard. I'm telling you, I'm
We'll give you your own password if you like.
Okay. Meetings, water reuse annual conference. Please let Diane know if you're attending. Yes, has everyone let you know?
Yep.
I told you, right?
Are you attending?
I am.
Water reuse?
Yes, in March. I don't think I told you yet.
That's in February.
No, it's in March 6th, this one right here, March 16th.
March 16th?
To the 18th.
Yeah.
Oh, we had a miss.
Yeah. Just so President Martin can get off my back about not going anywhere.
Okay.
And then also, Diane, I plan to attend the city address as well.
Okay. Anything else? Then we're gonna move to director's comments, future agenda items. Director Evans.
You knew I had something. I just wanted to say that I really enjoyed the, what is it, between the pipes? In
Yes.
between the, between the pipes?
Between the pipes.
I really enjoyed that, and I thought the picture of Corey dressed up like a waiter was great, and he should do that when he does his presentations. And I loved the way Rob looked.
That would be a plus, you're right.
Hat and the yellow thing, I thought that was great. And I don't know if any of you have taken time to check the Water Smart, what is it? The new website.
Yeah.
Water Smart, I keep switching it. I don't know if you've had, but it is a really wonderful site with a lot of great things. And I think it's a wonderful thing to promote to your friends and neighbors to check on. Well done. I like how it's looking.
Anything down there, comments? Anybody want to put anything in the future agenda? No? Now the time is that we're gonna move into closed session pursuant to Government Code Section 54957, Public Employee Performance Evaluation.